Welcome to the online tutorial sessions for economics. I'm Avinash Lambert, your economics guru, and today we are going to continue our third chapter, which is national income. Under the national income, today we are going to start a new topic, which is GDP and welfare. So before starting the GDP and welfare, let's understand what is welfare. Right? So students, what is welfare? In macroeconomics, welfare means people's well-being. If people are having good life, they are having good economic resources, non-economic resources, and they are having their well-being. There is some development in their life, then that is called welfare. Now students, there is one more term which is economic welfare. What is economic welfare? When people's welfare is affected by the economic factors like investment, consumption, production, all these type of things, all these economic factors, if they affect the welfare of the people, that welfare is known as the economic welfare. Now students, the next one is non-economic welfare. Now, when welfare of people is affected by non-economic factors. Non-economic factor means, what are non-economic factors? Non-economic factor means going to temple, going to a park. So these are the non-economic factors. If people are having well-being, they feel good with the non-economic factor, then that will be known as non-economic welfare. Now, the last term is social welfare. What is social welfare? It is the sum of economic welfare and non-economic welfare. Students, if you add up both the welfares like economic welfare plus non-economic welfare, you get the social welfare. The society develops in both the terms, in economic terms and also with the non-economic terms. Now students, let's come to the next topic. Students, let's start with our major topic, GDP and welfare. Now students, what is GDP and welfare? You understood what is welfare, you already know what is GDP. Now under this topic, you are going to learn that GDP, if GDP is growing, it doesn't always mean that welfare is also there. It does not mean that if GDP is growing, your welfare is also growing. No, it might or might not happen every time. So, welfare and GDP. Real GDP is considered as an index of welfare of the people. In the previous video, we just learned that GDP, that real GDP is considered as the index of welfare. It shows the development. Real GDP shows the development. That's why you must have heard politicians bragging about GDP in the news debates, in the newspaper. You must have read or you must have heard about the politicians bragging about GDP, that GDP has fallen, GDP has grown, and so and so. So GDP is very important. It's very important for the development, is an index of welfare, but it's not always that if GDP is growing, welfare is also there. So there are some limitations of GDP. There are some limitations. So there are certain limitations related to positive relationship between GDP and welfare. Not every time if GDP is growing, welfare is also growing. It's not necessary that it happens every time. So students, let's start with the limitations of GDP and welfare. The first one is distribution of income. Now, you all know distribution of income in India. Richer people are having more money, poor section of the society is having very less money. So that is the distribution of income. How much income everyone is receiving. So with the rise in GDP, if the GDP is growing, inequalities in the distribution of income may also increase. Suppose GDP is growing, the income earned by richer section is more. Most of the producers belong to the richer section. Most of the big businessmen, they produce a lot. So due to their production, GDP rises. But this also shows the distribution of income in the inequality section may also increase. That is, the gap between the rich and poor increases. If GDP rises, it also means it may happen that inequalities in the distribution of income may also arise, which means gap between the rich and the poor increases. Right now India is facing this problem. India is facing this at present scenario. Now GDP does not consider distribution of income and thus GDP may rise but welfare may not. GDP does not consider distribution of income. That's why if GDP rises, welfare may not every time. So that was the distribution of income. Now students, let's come to the second limitation, which is composition of GDP. What is the composition of GDP? What goods constitutes the GDP? You already learned about that there are different types of goods. There are producer goods, final goods, consumer goods, capital goods, defense goods. There are so many types of goods. So if luxury goods, what are luxury goods? Which are used by the richer people. So if luxury goods are produced for richer section of the society more, if the luxury goods are produced for richer section more than the necessity goods for poor, if luxury items are produced more in the society and the necessity goods are produced less, then GDP growth is meaningless. Your GDP will obviously it will increase, but is it worthwhile? No, it is not worthy because poor section of the society is not growing and the GDP growth is meaningless here. If goods are being produced for the richer people and not for the poor section of the society, then the GDP growth is meaningless. So that is your second limitation. Let's come to the third one. The third one is change in prices. Now if GDP increases due to the change in prices, if prices of the economy of the goods increases and thus the GDP rises, it's not worthy. If increase in GDP is due to the increase in price, then GDP is again meaningless. If GDP is increasing due to the rise in prices, then it's not development, it's not welfare, GDP is meaningless. In the previous video, we studied the same concept in the terms of nominal GDP and real GDP. Real GDP is calculated with the current year prices and the real GDP is calculated with the base year prices. So real GDP gives the better outcome. But if GDP is due to the nominal GDP due to the current year prices, then in that case the GDP is meaningless. Now students, the fourth one, which is non-monetary exchanges. Non-monetary exchanges means all those activities that are not evaluated in terms of money. There are so many activities in your home, in your society, that is not evaluated, that is not calculated in terms of money. They are done for the satisfaction, for our pleasure. So, for example, services of housewife or mother. Your mother cooks food for you. Do you pay her? No. She does that because of her love, of her affection. The kitchen, gardening, all these things are done for the satisfaction, for our mental satisfaction. So they are not calculated, they are not evaluated in terms of money. One more example. In rural areas, barter system happens till now. They exchange goods for other goods, right? So barter system is also an example of non-monetary exchanges. People are having welfare, people are exchanging rice for wheat. So in that term, in that aspect, we can say that people are having welfare, people are getting wheat, people are getting rice. But do they have monetary exchange? Are we calculating that? Are we adding that transaction in the GDP? No, because there is no money transaction in that. They are just exchanging goods. They are doing non-monetary exchanges. So in that case, GDP is not grown, but welfare is there. So it is the opposite of other limitation, that GDP is rising. The welfare is rising, but GDP is not, because those are non-monetary exchanges and they are not included in the GDP. The next one is rate of population growth. Now students, if rate of population growth is more than the GDP growth, suppose the growth rate of population is more in comparison to the rise in the GDP, then what will happen? The per capita income of that country will go down. The average income of a person will go down, and that is not a good indicator. So the per capita income will decrease and welfare will not be there. If population is growing with a very fast speed and the GDP is not growing, it means that the per capita income is going to go down, and that is not a good indicator. It is not an indicator, and welfare will not be there. Now the next one is sixth one, which is externalities. Students, this point, the sixth one, which is externalities, this is very important. It was asked in this year's, in 2019-2020 board exam under the 3 marks. So it refers to the good and bad impact of economic activities without paying the price or penalty. It means whatever good and whatever bad our economic activities are doing with the nature, or doing with the anything which we are, if we are doing any kind of good or bad with our economic activities without paying the price or penalty, then in that case it refers to the externalities. Suppose I have damaged something and I have not paid the penalty, then that is the externalities. Suppose I have planted one tree, I have planted one sapling. Now in that case, I am not going to pay the price because it is done by my affection. I have done some good by my economic activities. So in that case, externalities are there. Now, good impacts of economic activities are called positive externalities. If I am doing good, suppose I am planting a tree, then that is a positive externalities. And what is bad impact of economic activities? They are known as negative externalities. If I am doing good with my economic activities, that is a positive externalities. And if I am doing something bad, something wrong with my economic activities, then that is known as negative externalities. Now, let's see the examples. Industrial pollution. The firms, they spread lots of pollution. So, industrial pollution done by firms reduces welfare. If firms are going to pollute the environment, that this is the bad impact on our society. So welfare will not increase, it will reduce the welfare. Our pollution, our environment is going to be polluted. So it is an example of negative externalities. Now, plantation of plants or saplings and visiting public parks for pleasure. This increases our welfare. We feel good. There is a people's well-being. I feel good while visiting park. I feel good while planting a sapling. So this increases the welfare, and that's an example of positive externalities. Learn this whole concept. This is very important. The whole topic is very important. Every year there is something which is being asked with this topic. Now the last topic for today is green GNP. Now students, what is green GNP? Green GNP means basically it measures national income or output adjusted for the depletion of natural resources and degradation of the environment. It measures national income or output, whatever we have generated, produced, adjusted for the whatever we have produced by depletion of natural resources and degradation of environment. Basically, let's understand with the example. Suppose the total production by my firm is of rupees 1 lakh. Fine. And while producing this, I have cut down trees, I have polluted the environment. So I have provided the loss to nature of rupees 10,000. I have produced 1 lakh, and what I provided the loss to the nature is of worth rupees 10,000. So whatever is remaining now, you have to subtract 10,000 from 1 lakh. That will be 90,000. So this 90,000 is that production which I have produced without providing loss to the nature. Is that clear? Without the depletion of natural resources and degradation of environment. That's what it's written. It measures national income or output adjusted. They have adjusted the national income for the depletion of natural resources and degradation of the environment. Whatever they are producing, that is not by providing loss to the nature. So with this example, total production by the firm 1 lakh rupees, loss provided to the nature, that is 10,000 rupees. So the total production which is done without providing loss to the nature is 90,000 rupees, and this 90,000 rupees will be the green GNP. That's the green GNP. Fine students, I hope it is very clear to you all. I hope you have understood all the topics. Now the last thing, I want you to take a screenshot so that you can prepare your notes. Take a very neat and clean screenshot. Pause this video and take a screenshot. Fine, I hope you are taking the screenshot. Now students, that's all for this video. See you soon.